From Pocketnow.com, this is Pocketnow Weekly.
Hello, and welcome to episode 12 of the Pocketnow Weekly, the once-a-week podcast from Pocketnow.com, where we discuss news and opinion from the world of mobile technology, smartphones, tablets, phablets of every shape, stripe, shade, and source, and so forth. I'm your host, Michael Fisher, senior editor at Pocketnow. I'm joined, as usual, by our editor-in-chief, Brandon Miniman. Good morning to you, sir.
Hello there.
And by Anton Dinaj is off this week, so a very special guest joining us for the first time on the show, Chief News Editor Stephen Schenck. Welcome to the Pocketnow Weekly.
Ahoy, hoy. Thanks for having me.
It's great to have you. We had a shake-up this morning, so Stephen is joining us on somewhat short notice, and this is great because, as I was saying just a second ago off the air, I have never spoken to Stephen in real life. We have chatted on Instant Messenger, we've chatted via text. I have absolutely never heard his voice before this very moment, so this is very exciting for me.
Someday we'll share photos, then eventually a video, possibly meet in real life 5 or 6 years down the line.
You know, our relationship is just going to keep growing, and I'm very much looking forward to our adventure to Utah to meet fellow mystery man Joe Levi in 10 years.
Ooh, got to go West Coast for that one.
Yeah. This is a strange morning all around on account of. You ever have those evenings where maybe you've stayed up a little too late? And you're laying in bed thinking, well, you know what? At least I can sleep in tomorrow. Wow. Is that you, Brandon? Is it a crazy news day over there for you?
It's so funny because ever since the mega foul of several weeks ago, where I literally had 7 calls in a row, I started to remove all electronic devices from the podcasting area here, but the day that I forget, my wife calls, and so I just texted her to leave me alone.
I thought that was like the red news phone ringing. I thought you guys had to go into the news bat cave for.
Got a hot tip coming through.
Right.
This is good though. Wives love it when you dismiss their calls. This is going to work out well for you, Brandon.
I was just gonna say, yeah, this is gonna be awesome.
I'm not going home tonight.
You're camping out in the office tonight.
Yeah.
But no, like I was saying, last night I'm up late and I'm like, well, this is ridiculous. It's very, very early in the morning and the sun's going to be coming up soon, and at least I can sleep in. Oh crap, we're recording the podcast tomorrow. So I woke up this morning not well rested, and it was only the last minute edition of Stephen that really got my adrenaline going and readied me for the podcast. So thank you, Stephen.
I have that effect on people.
Yeah,
I've been told this.
This is awesome. Let's hop in a little bit to the news here. I kind of want to, because we have Stephen on the show, I want to maybe change up the order just a little bit. But before any of that, Brandon Miniman, tell us what you want to talk about at first.
Oh, thank you for the floor. So I've got something to say about Apple. I'm a little disappointed in Apple for 2 reasons. So. One of the great, amazing features, I'd say it's an amazing feature of the iPhone 5 is this beveled edge, because if you tilt it in the light, it reflects the light just right. It looks so unique. I can't think of any other phone that has it. But it's tragically flawed, as we found out recently, and we posted about. If you happen to drop the iPhone 5, or even if you mishandle it, you're going to nick this aluminum edge. And not only that, but a lot of people are finding that their iPhone 5s are coming from the factory with nicks already in them, which is insane because you picture some machine, churning out millions of iPhones, and how could it possibly damage the phone? Of course, there are humans involved somewhere along the line. So mine came with a nick, and in the unboxing video, I kind of showed that and was surprised to see it. So I'd always intended on going to the Apple Store and getting a swap, insisting on a swap, because there's no way I'm going to live my life with a phone that came damaged from the factory. So the other day, I haven't done the swap yet, by the way. The other day, I accidentally dropped the iPhone 5. It wasn't a big fall, though. It was like 2 feet, and it was onto a tile surface, which is relatively smooth, low friction. It's not like concrete, and I didn't
super hard though.
Yeah.
Well, not as hard as concrete. It's probably, I don't think it matters that much.
Can we break out the Mohs hardness scale real quick?
Yeah, taking me back to 9th grade. So I dropped the phone, and I almost didn't want to pick it up. but I did, and I noticed that there were 2 new nicks in the aluminum edges. And I thought to myself, it's tragic because the iPhone 5 is so beautiful, and yet you can't not. I don't know if I said that right. You can't not have a case. You have to cover up these edges, or else everyone drops their phone. I don't care if you've got iron grip. I think I have iron grip, but I drop it anyway. But you have to get a case for the iPhone 5 because they went with this soft aluminum, whereas on the iPhone 4 and 4S, they had steel bands around the edge, which were more resilient. And yeah, if you dropped your naked iPhone 4 or 4S, you would have cracked the front or back, probably. But like this metal thing just takes it to a whole new level.
Yeah, I mean, and is that's what I was going to say. I was going to say, well, this just makes the case for a case, which is stupid because I hate cases, as we've discussed before. I mean, you're covering up all this beautiful engineering, all this hardware design that went into making this, device that Apple and other manufacturers espouse as beautiful.
Yeah,
and you're covering up in this this carnation pink silicone bullshit, BS,
Yeah. Why go to the trouble of having this fancy beveled edge if you can't even see it?
Exactly,
and that's why Apple didn't make a bumper for the 5 because they didn't want to cover up this beautiful edge. So
they didn't build a bumper for the 5 at all.
There's no official Apple bumper for the 5.
Oh, I didn't know that.
It's crazy.
Wow, yeah.
Yeah. Good for third parties because people kind of got used to that bumper, and the bumper was a great idea for the 4 and 4S.
Yeah. Now, can I ask you a question, Brandon?
No. Yes.
Well, I beat you to it. I want to ask you: is it possible? I haven't handled my own iPhone 5 yet, so I want to know: is it possible that one of those stick-on, the screen protector-esque coverings could help with this, or are those beveled edges just such small surface area that it wouldn't apply there? Like, you know what I'm talking about? The transparent stickies that go all over the phone. I don't know what you call it.
It's like a film. Yeah. I think that, like you said, the edge is so small that it would be impossible to wrap. Maybe there's that product where you spray the whole entire device.
Oh, God.
And it's clear.
Ew. Ugh. Yeah, it sounds like...
It's ooey, I know.
Unless the protector was already, kind of folded to fit the edges, I don't see you just pushing down and molding it onto those bevels. They're so tiny.
Yeah,
not gonna happen. So I'm getting a case now. So that's my first disappointment with Apple, which is that they created a product that cannot exist as a naked product. And there's nothing worse, and I'm sure you guys have seen this, someone who goes in the total opposite extreme of naked. They have this screen protector with these horrible bubbles underneath. It's misaligned. They've got this thick case, and you're like, is there an iPhone under there?
Yes. It like literally appears to be like this actual brick hanging around the neck of a friend of mine who's a stage manager, so she's always like crawling around and beating up her phone, and she needs it, but it's a monster. I mean, it's just some of those OtterBox cases are just they almost double the size of the device, and it's like, wow, that's just incredible.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Are you going to do that?
No, I'm
Thank God.
I'm actually going to Best Buy this afternoon to find a case that's as minimal and as protective as possible. So I'm saying goodbye to the beveled edges. I will pretend like they don't even exist because I won't see them unless you get like a clear case. But that just looks cheap anyway. So the second.
I'm sorry, I'm throw in here for a second while we're still on the metal here. Is this going to be a huge problem with the iPad Mini? Because the picture we saw looks like it has the same aluminum finish.
Does it?
Is this? Yeah. Are the ones that came out yesterday? If it's going to be, Scratch City over there, is that going to be a huge problem?
Well, it's not like on the back of the iPhone, it's got that aluminum with this coating. Which is good. It's scratch resistant. It really is. It's just this beveled edge, and I can't imagine that the iPad Mini will have a beveled edge. In fact, the leaked images don't appear to have.
Yeah, I don't think we've seen that. No.
Just proportionately, it would have to be a thicker metal edge to be substantial enough.
Right.
So we'll have to see it. It's interesting because the newest. I guess we might talk about the iPad Mini later.
We are. I mean, we can actually, if you wanted to leap into it now, that's totally fine. Because I'm looking at the images right now to see what you guys are talking about. I'm looking at the black, the photos of the black case.
Yeah, that's new. but I mean, I guess it'll come in white or black, and it'll be sort of that gunmetal look.
Yeah, for the listeners who don't know what we're talking about, this is a leak that happened. What was it? Yesterday from this comes to us from like Ukrainian iPhone. Is that right?
Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah, with this showing this supposed iPad mini case that is just all black. Is this metal? I've actually have the link here, but I can't. Do we know?
It's got to be.
Yeah.
Unless
It looks
it's cloth.
like it at least.
Maybe it's leather or maybe they're
Naugahyde.
taking.
Yes. If I would buy, but can I just go on record right now? If a Naugahyde iPad ever comes out, I will buy it and never ever get rid of it.
What's that word you use? I thought you said something else. And what was that word?
Naugahyde?
Naugahyde?
What is that?
It's a premium pleather.
Oh,
It's
those
like a
Fringe
staple
fans
of
out there.
a staple of 1960s design. The original Star Trek series had a lot of Naugahyde in it.
that is terrific.
Yeah.
I love that material. Anyhow, one more
yeah.
thought before we get into the podcast. So I actually pre-ordered 2 iPhone 5s, one for me and one for Jaime, because where Jaime lives, to get an iPhone 5 is literally double the price that it is here.
Right.
So we arranged for me to buy one for him, and then he pays me back and so forth. So I got the second iPhone 5 yesterday, and I took it out of the box. And the second one was actually going to be mine because he wanted the 64 gig and I wanted the 32. I take it out of the box and I nervously inspect the edges. I'm like, you better not have any nicks. And it didn't have any nicks. Yay. But
And
what
then
I immediately...
Did you secretly swap them out? Are you going to give Jaime the chipped one?
Well, the chipped one I'm
You
taking
can tell
back.
us. Oh, that's right.
I'm
yeah.
taking back.
I forgot.
So he's going to
After
get
the tile drop, you think they're going to exchange it for you?
Yeah, I am a little nervous about that. But
I'm going to go
I
exchange
have...
it before the podcast goes live.
Well, I have proof through video and
Okay. Yeah,
that
that's
it
true.
actually wasn't nicked out of the box. So anyway,
Okay.
Yeah.
So I get the new iPhone 5 and I'm like, I wonder if they're any different. So I turn on the new one and I'm like, this home button is totally different. The home button on the first iPhone 5 I got was clicky. The second iPhone 5 I got, the home button is a little bit more numb. And then I mess around with some other things. I flip the toggle switch. I press the volume up and down button. I notice the volume up and down buttons are more clicky on this newer iPhone 5 than on the old one. And I started to get a little bit worried because, I fear that we're seeing a post Steve Jobs Apple that we all sort of feared, where it's okay to release a Maps app that's not good enough, where it's okay to release a phone with soft metal edges, where it's okay to have differences between final products, meaning the home button would have a different texture on one iPhone 5 versus the other. And I understand that there are human limitations in our ability to create 10 million of one very complex product in a very short period of time, and this variation can be expected. But there's not just one thing that is a hash sign fail for the iPhone 5. There are multiple things, and it just worries me that this is the new Apple, that their bar has been lowered a little bit.
It's an interesting point. I mean, you got me thinking about what other iPhones, what fails other iPhones have launched with, though, in the Steve Jobs era. And I'm thinking about like the badges, the fact that badges support and push notification support was delayed by, I think, like a full year. Because I expected it on the iPhone 3G, and we were told to expect it on the iPhone 3G, as I recall, and it didn't really arrive in full until the 3GS, right? I mean, that's a giant kind of failure on their part. And I remember remember the bubbles? Remember the bubbles problem on the iPhone 3G? Where the casing would just from the casing material would spring forth these little spherical defects that grew over time.
Ew.
Yeah.
I don't remember that. Sounds horrible.
Like it wasn't bonded properly, or?
I don't, no, it was something like, I don't know technically what went wrong, but the end result, which I noticed on mine a little bit, was that if you looked closely enough, over time the iPhone case would become less smooth, and not in the way of scratches, but it was almost as if you were holding a heat source underneath it, and small bubbles of gas were escaping from the casing. Yeah,
That's grody.
It was fascinating. Oh yeah, it was very interesting to see that science in action. But of course, not everybody liked it. I certainly didn't. So I feel like we've seen these problems before, and I don't know if I definitely know where you're coming from, Brandon. I'm not sure if these problems are severe enough yet to be concerned about overly concerned about that, but I think that's something that we're all kind of holding our breath waiting for, right? It's like Steve Jobs was this, we've talked about before, was this ridiculously obsessed perfectionist, and now that influence maybe, is not there on a day-to-day basis, then yeah, there's going to come a day where we're going to see some real problems, and I don't know, I guess it'll come down to how Apple handles it, and like they're handling the map situation, like this actually our first iOS story. Apple came out on, this was on September 20th. This is like right after we last recorded. It's the oldest news in the lineup, where Apple's CEO Tim Cook came out and published a letter on the company's website saying, "We're extremely sorry for the frustration this has caused, and we're doing everything we can to make maps better." What do you guys think about this reaction? I think it's pretty cool to see a company say, all right, we've weathered a couple days worth of negative coverage because our product isn't very good, and also, you know what, you're right, and we're sorry. I mean, what do you guys? What's your feeling on how this was handled?
I mean, it's nice to see a mea culpa, but without any sort of, follow through plan. Like, okay, now we're going to go back, quick sign that deal with Google, get you what you want straight away. I mean, they're in the same boat. They're waiting for something better, and have no idea when it's going to arrive.
Yeah. I heard I was riding the subway here in Boston the other day, and two guys were on their way to two college kids, and one of them had the iPhone 5, and I just was overhearing snips of their conversation where the guy was like, no, not very good, or something. Like, oh, did you get? And then the other guy was like, oh, did you use Bing? And the other guy was like, what? Bing Maps. What's that?
Bing?
Yeah, no, exactly. It was like this. It was like he'd never been exposed to the Bing brand before, and it was very telling. And the other guy was like, "It's Microsoft's thing." And what was very odd about this conversation was the minute that other guy was like, "It's the Microsoft thing," the guy was like, "Oh, Bing, oh." It was like, okay.
Oh, capital B.
Right.
Capital.
Yeah, you have to Alta Vista it, right?
The Bing Maps isn't even updated for the taller screen on the iPhone, so that's kind of frustrating.
Black bars.
It's got the black bars.
Oh dear.
There, I'm actually surprised at how slow it's going with the updating of the apps. I mean, a lot of key apps like Spotify and the Apple Store, and there's just so many apps that haven't been updated. It's crazy. That
is crazy. That's weird. I'm sure those will catch up over time, but it's just, I don't know. I mean, Brandon, you've spent another week with it now. I mean, we talked about maps for extensively in the last podcast, but I just want to touch on it here. I mean, are you still? What's your feeling on it? Has it changed at all?
No, I mean, I was driving by my high school and it was misspelled, and so I submitted a report a problem, and I didn't want to do that because like I've never had to stop and send in an error report for a Maps app. It's ridiculous.
Oh, and I love sending in Google Maps error reports. It's fun. Then you see how you contributed to it when they finally accept it. It's great.
Yeah, let's say they do accept it, Stephen. Then you've got to like keep checking back. There's no way to know, like, oh, they actually listen to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've never submitted an action item to Google to fix something on their maps, but I tell you, I have had the opportunity to do so. I don't know if I mentioned it on the last podcast, but Google Maps and I don't. Google Maps frequently screws up for me. I'll search for something that I know is there because I've been there before. I just can't remember the exact address, and I know its exact name. And I don't know if it's a sponsored result messing it up. I don't know if it's one of the Zagat things messing it up, if it's a restaurant, but it won't give me the right place. Like maybe 3 times out of 5, it won't give me the proper number 1 search result. I have to like dig through the list if I'm on my device. So maybe it's me. Maybe I don't. I'm at the opposite of the Midas touch with Google Maps, but I certainly haven't had a flawless Maps experience on Android.
Now, you're talking about looking for points of interest or addresses?
I'm talking about looking for a point of interest based on its name, specifically like a restaurant or a bar. Like this has happened with maybe, I guess, in the last month I've probably done 5 or 6 map searches, and 3 or 4 out of those times it hasn't given me.
It's interesting. It's the same thing that we're calling Apple out on now, yet it's happening with Google, and no one seems to be that concerned with it.
And maybe, like I say, I haven't heard widespread complaints about it, so maybe it's just me. I'm not doing anything wrong, I guarantee you that, but maybe it's a Boston thing, I don't know. But, it's not like it's a small city, so if it is a Boston thing, that's a problem. And maybe I'll submit error reports.
There you go.
Yeah.
Be a good citizen.
Be a good internet citizen.
But to answer your question, I mean, beyond that, I guess one of the true tests will be tomorrow, actually, when I go to New York City. Mm-hmm. and so are you, Michael.
me, yes.
You know, we're going to be navigating around the city, and I guess I'll test it for real then. But besides that, here in the burbs, you know, it's been fine. It finds what I need it to find. I haven't had any weird moments. I do definitely miss Street View, but beyond that, it works for what I need it for.
Wow. It'll be. I will very much look forward to seeing how yours works in New York City and trading devices with you for a second. We should have a maps off once we on our way to the event. I definitely want to see how much we can get each one to screw up.
I am tempted to put together a scavenger hunt for you two.
Oh, that would be awesome.
That'd be delightful.
You want to go geocaching, Brandon? That would be fun.
Yeah. Do all kinds of fun stuff. We could hide QR codes, or actually, I was going to suggest some sort of NFC technology, but can't do that with the iPhone 5.
Womp womp.
Womp womp.
But then again, who uses NFC? No one.
No one. I know. Every time I see a Galaxy S3 commercial where it's like, oh, wow, we can just tap our phones together and trade content. It's like, yeah, but nobody really does. Anyway, I want to talk about, before we move on to Android, the iPhone 5 total cost of ownership. Jaime, is this Jaime who dug this up?
I think that was.
Yeah. This was a report from, what is the name of the firm? Avalanche. Who spent some time calculating how much it would cost you to own a smartphone during the year. And, of course, I guess the iPhone 5 being one of the most talked about devices, they decided to run some numbers on that. And it's actually a very pretty little rundown here that's really well visually appealing.
Infograph.
Yeah, it's very cool. I mean, it's just, these things probably take a long time to make. I don't think I want to find out how to make them, because then you'll want me to make one, right?
Every day.
Yeah.
Like ignorant.
Yeah.
So this is like, I look at this and I'm like, yeah, it's expensive to own an iPhone 5 over 2 years, but it's also expensive to own a standard smartphone. The only real difference is that apps in the Apple Store are a little bit more expensive. You've got to get some new accessories, and you've got to get a new case, which is an accessory. But like, doesn't this apply to One X or Galaxy S3?
Maybe not so much with the really expensive lightning cables and the adapters, but yeah, I mean the monthly plans. This is what you're going to be paying on an Android or Windows phone.
Right. And it is actually, that's probably the most interesting thing about this infographic, is it does break down in the U.S. the network providers' cost. Verizon, AT&T, and Sprint are all quoted here. And it's just so interesting to see what some of these plans are in a form outside of their usual websites, because you see Verizon, it's like you could pay $80 a month and you're getting unlimited talk time, unlimited messages, but 300 megs of data, which it's just laid out in such stark relief how crappy the data situation is today.
Yeah. I would have loved to see T-Mobile's data up here as well, because it's been making a big push to get the iPhone users over to its network, and it has a pretty decent unlimited deal compared to the rest of these guys. I think it's something like 70 or 80 a month for unlimited data as well as everything else.
Yeah.
Yeah, T-Mobile's really pushing on trying to look competitive, and they have to. They're hanging on to a distant fourth, I think, but they maybe are going to be moving a little bit in the right direction with the acquisition of Metro PCS.
Yeah, that's like the big news of the morning, right? We were getting ready to podcast, and I saw this pop up. I mean, this is a fresh news. T-Mobile has announced, T-Mobile USA has announced that they are going to acquire, if the feds let them, regional provider Metro PCS here in the States, which Metro PCS, I don't know about in your guys' market, but Metro PCS has been this really aggressive company as far as marketing goes. They're like, check it out, we've got unlimited for cheaper than anybody else. We've got, Android phones. They're really drilling this whole, like, you can get a smartphone with unlimited data for way cheaper than anybody else, and it'll work where you need it to work. And apparently they've been doing well, because they've been huge. They've even rolled out LTE, which for a tiny little regional carrier is like, wow, that's cool,
And voice over LTE already.
Do they have Volt? Yeah?
And they're testing it in some markets.
Wow. What Sprint was rumored... No, it wasn't rumored. I think Sprint was trying to buy them, and then the talks fell through a couple months ago? Can anyone confirm that?
I don't remember that, but that very well could have been.
Yeah, I think I went... Because I went into a Metro PCS store at the time, and I was like...
They shooed you away. We might be shutting down in a week.
No,
come back later.
I didn't want to. Mention it. I just went in with that stigma of the guy who's walking into the store and looking at the people, being like, "I've been in your situation before, dudes. This merger stuff is scary." But then it didn't happen. At any rate, well, whether that's true or not, this is all contingent on government approval and stuff like that. What was your first thought about this, guys? Mine was that I was happy for T-Mobile USA. It's good to hear them talking about getting back on their feet after the whole AT&T nonsense.
Yeah, I think it's a great move. I'm cautiously optimistic. I mean, when we were talking about AT&T and T-Mobile getting together, that sounded like the worst idea ever.
Yes.
I mean, just from a monopolistic standpoint, this I think is going to be beneficial to their subscribers. It doesn't look like they're going to shut down the existing CDMA network anytime soon. A gradual transition into what we've all been hoping for. This future where everyone uses LTE, you can jump between networks. I think this could be a starting off point for LTE roaming, especially.
Oh God, yeah, that would be something else.
How's T-Mobile's LTE plans? Is it still just 2013, or have they given specifics on first cities to get?
I haven't seen any specifics. I haven't paid much attention because T-Mobile seems to be so invested in just talking about how ridiculously fast their HSPA network is, and it's true. Like I have some T-Mobile fans in my feed, and they're always kind of like, "Hey guys, it's been a week, so here's another speed test showing that I'm getting better speeds on HSPA than you're getting on LTE."
Really?
Yeah.
Like what are the speeds that they're getting?
They're getting like 30 something and whatever, and I can hit that on LTE just fine, but in some markets that have higher LTE penetration, I think. Well, no, actually, no. Even here, like Verizon. When I do review units for Verizon, it's you're like 15 down or 16 down usually. It's, whatever.
And this lack of LTE on T-Mobile has really harmed them, and it's going to harm them even more over the next 6 months because, in the case of Apple turning away from T-Mobile, probably because, they're not going to release a non-LTE iPhone, and I imagine that other carriers would feel the same way. Although it sounds like it's been a while since I tested the HSPA Plus on T-Mobile, and when I tested it wasn't that impressive. But it sounds like it's living up to its promise.
Yeah, it really does. And, I don't think T-Mobile has much in the way of capacity issues to deal with. I'm not speaking...
Because no one's on it.
Right. I'm not speaking from any position of authority at all, but, we all know that T-Mobile is the smallest player in the States, so...
Speaking of network traffic, I remember back about 2 years ago, CES 2010, when Verizon launched their LTE network. And the speeds that people were getting were ridiculous. At the time, they were like 20, 25 down. And everyone was like, oh, yeah, but wait till everyone gets on the network. It's going to go down. Mm-hmm. And, okay, so 2 years later, a lot of people, it's not nearly as used as the 3G network. No. But, I got to say that, and Michael, you could speak to this with your, is LTE going to come crashing down?
Right.
The network seems to be taking the load quite well and staying fast around that 20 megabit per second.
It really is, and I'm very surprised. I remember I had a review unit that this is a lesson learned, I stupidly did not do a hard reset on first before I started reviewing it. So halfway through the review, I'm like, why are my LTE speeds at like 9 down? This is ridiculous. And I don't know what software problem this device was having, but the minute I did a hard reset in the middle of the review period, I was getting the speeds I needed to again. And I was like, oh, wow. I was all set to dog Verizon's network as like, wow, it's already feeling the brunt of all these users hopping on. But no, here in the greater Boston area, both Verizon and AT&T are having just a wonder. I have a great time anytime I can get on their LTE network, which is very often because I'm a Verizon customer. So yeah, it's a little surprising to me, and I'm like knocking on wood right now. I don't want to ruin anything because
everyone knock on wood.
It's so nice.
Stephen, knock on wood.
Way ahead of you.
Good, thank you.
We want our LTE speeds to be as good as possible because the future is now. Although, right, as we talked in the last podcast, we're still questioning what can be done with these much faster speeds, but I'm sure there will be good enough answers in the future.
And, I've got to wonder how much of the high speeds that we're seeing now is a result of the carriers smartly building up their network, adding the capacity, and how much is just users aren't pulling down as much data as they might want to because it's expensive, because they're afraid of hitting their caps.
Right. That's a good question. I don't think. If anything, I think people are almost, if by accident, using their data more.
I was
because
thinking because it's faster.
It's faster. Like,
Yeah.
oh, I'm going to go ahead and download that song, and then they get their bill at the end of the month, and like, oh, damn, I shouldn't have done that.
I like to think of it as trying to fill a water bottle with a fire hose.
Yeah. Yeah.
Nice. That's a good analogy.
I was thinking this very same thing yesterday, Stephen, I think, because I was standing in line at a shop or something like that, and I was kind of using maps, and the idea just popped into my head. I was like, oh, I wonder where I am on my data allotment for the month, because I have a ridiculous plan. I've got like 6 gigs a month, and it's great, but I have to try to use that up. Like, I have to be tethering every day and doing news posts with a lot of images to like even get close to using that, or editorials with it. Sorry, not news posts. But I'm still concerned about it. I could be at 200 megabytes in, 28 days into the month, and I'm still worried about it because it's not unlimited by virtue of the fact that it's not, because it's a finite resource. And I hate that feeling. I absolutely hate it, and I really miss Sprint in that regard because I used to be a Sprint customer.
It's that same anxiety that you get when when you have reason to believe that you're not going to make it through wherever you are, whatever you're doing with battery life.
Yes. Yeah, you could be at 80%, and the day only has 2 hours left in it, and you're still like, wow, I really wish I'd brought that spare battery. It's this weird anxiety thing. It's like anxiety in the cellular age.
But I've got to say, I'm surprised how much users seem to be on top of these concerns. They're aware of these caps, and they're like you. They're checking to see where they are in their data usage. There was some study that I posted about last week that showed a breakdown by age group of how users consume cellular data and then Wi-Fi. And everyone is using Wi-Fi to a significant amount beyond what they're using on cellular. I would have thought that your average Joe smartphone user might not be so savvy as to be hopping onto Wi-Fi whenever possible, but it seems like people they're taking care to stay off the network when they don't need to be.
That's true.
All it takes is one overage, and then you're like, how can I stop this? Oh, I have Wi-Fi at home, and I don't even have Wi-Fi turned on. Maybe I should, connect that.
Well, that's true, but also, I mean, there's also that thing that we were complaining about before with this really, really aggressive Wi-Fi software that companies are building out. I wrote a piece called "Wi-Fi Auto On Must Be Stopped" a couple of weeks ago because it is absurd. I don't know if you guys have noticed this on your own devices or whatever, but the Galaxy S3 with the Verizon software build on it will not allow you to do anything. Like, you can't turn off Wi-Fi notifications. The device will periodically wake up no matter what you do, look to see if there's a Wi-Fi network, and if there is, it will ask you if you want to connect to it. I mean, it's aggressive to the point of overreaching, and it's very, very annoying.
It's not cool. It's just not cool.
And there was a story today in this on the flip side about was this you, Stephen, talking about the iPhone, how it is the iPhone is rumored not to be hopping onto Wi-Fi networks properly?
Yeah, they released a patch for Verizon, but supposedly it's happening all over the place.
Which, yeah, with the iPhone, it says it's on Wi-Fi, but it's actually using cellular data. Is that the story?
And I'm not clear if it's that it's jumping over to the cellular network when it shouldn't be, or that it's improperly tallying megabytes you're pulling down over Wi-Fi as cellular. But the point is that users are being charged for data when they shouldn't be.
Wow.
There's going to be an update to iOS 6 very soon. There are more problems with it than I think any previous update. And it's funny you mentioned this issue of when the device should be using Wi-Fi, it's using cellular, because what I've noticed is that when I take my iPhone 5 out of standby, I can catch it on LTE when a second later, when I'm still on the lock screen, it'll go to Wi-Fi. Whereas on the 4S, I took it out of standby and I saw the Wi-Fi bars right away.
Really?
So it's almost like when it sleeps, it's falling back to cellular, which would.
That's interesting. I feel like I've encountered that situation before, where devices, I don't remember which ones were running what platform, but like I'll wake them up and it's like, oh wow. So when you're in sleep, you turn off Wi-Fi, and now you have to find the Wi-Fi network again. That's weird. Yeah.
Not cool.
No.
Not cool.
Not acceptable. I don't like it.
Not acceptable. I don't like it.
Let's we ventured into MISC territory there for a second. Let's hop on back and talk Android a little bit. We had a significant device announcement a couple days ago with HTC announcing the One X Plus, which is cool. I wish they had done this like a week ago, so I could have mentioned this in my in my piece on how mid-range phones are sometimes cooler, because HTC also announced the HTC One VX, which reminds me of the poison gas in The
This
Rock.
is what I was saying to Brandon.
Yeah, Stephen was saying.
Name for
Were you?
Don't you watch The Rock, man? How do you know what VX is?
Come on, man.
forget.
Yeah, I'm just having visions of people getting, green poison marbles put in their mouths and punched in the face. The HTC VX is the mid-range option of the two, and I think it looks way better than the One X Plus. The One X Plus, not the One X. What's the story on that? Were you guys disappointed by these? Heartened? I mean, it looks to me like an iterative upgrade on the One X and not much else for the higher end one.
The sort of disappointing moment came when I was reading the press release, and they were like, it's got a better processor, higher clocking. I'm like, good, better battery. Good. More milliamp hours, that's always good. And we've upgraded the front-facing camera to use the image sense chip. And I found my palm and I pressed it against my face, and I thought to myself, when are they going to get the message that people do not think that the One X has an amazing camera? They think it has an okay camera. And when are they going to change the slogan from, amazing camera, authentic sound to, well, I guess, I don't know. To be creative.
It's something else. I wonder about this too, because we always complain about this, right? To be even more precise, you and everyone else complains about this, but me.
I know. I don't understand it. I don't understand it.
I don't think the One X's camera was that bad in my testing. I have to go back and read my review. I mean,
I didn't say it's bad. It's not as good as the marketing material will lead you to believe.
No, but
and compared to the Galaxy S3, it's absolutely inferior. Compared to the iPhone 5, it's absolutely inferior.
Isn't that the whole point of marketing, to hype something up to make it sound better than it might actually be?
And I think
That could be the case.
A big important component of marketing is not just to get people to buy your product based on that claim. It's to reinforce. It's to do that. What is that that logical fallacy that. Oh God, it's that after the fact reinforcement. It's that when you buy a product and you want to defend it. It's what leads to fanboyism. It's what leads to jerks I hate. But it at any point it's like, yes, we're HTC, you've bought our product. Now watch commercials about the product you already own and how awesome the camera is. So, it's this kind of reinforcing this perception that led you to buy the phone in the first place, where I imagine that there are thousands and thousands of HTC One X owners out there being like, showing their friends and being like, check out this amazing camera. And then, because their friend is saying it, the friend is like, oh, yeah, no, totally, that's a great picture. And I think we mentioned last week that it's the screen that makes the images look so much better on the phone.
Right, it does have a great screen.
It's a beautiful screen. Are they bonding the screen on the One X Plus as well? Is it laminated?
I don't think they're changing the screen tech for the One X Plus.
Yeah.
Which is a good thing, because I think in my unscientific tests, I think the One X and One X Plus still has the best screen of any mobile device, even better than the iPhone 5.
Yeah, that One X screen was amazing. I agree.
It's delicious.
There's been a lot of backlash recently about the iPhone 5 screen quality. I mean, at first everyone was talking about how great it was, but now these studies saying the Galaxy S3 has such a better screen. You guys are saying the One X. I mean, did Apple? This is another thing not to get back into iPhone territory now, but maybe that's another failure there that Apple, post Steve Jobs, that we wouldn't have expected a year ago.
Why are they saying the Galaxy S3 has a better screen than the 5?
I didn't look into the details of it, but I'm assuming resolution, color saturation, gamut, all the technical stuff.
Resolution, yes. Color saturation, you're always going to get slightly better on an AMOLED. And gamut, I have no idea what that means.
I'm glad you said it. I didn't want to fess up. I was just over here like, oh yeah, gamut. I know what you. Yeah, totally, man.
Got the gamut.
Got it right, man. And when I run the gamut, it's intense. Yeah.
You run the gauntlet, not the gamut.
Hey, man, you do what you want down there in Philadelphia. Up here in Boston, we run the gamut. I don't know what that means. I don't know. I haven't compared the two. I mean, the iPhone 5, I would like to see it next to a Galaxy S3. I'd like to see it next to a One X, and not through a computer monitor, right? But there's, fortunately, speaking of displays, speaking of large displays for some reason, speaking of clumsy segues, the Galaxy Note 2 might be shipping with incomplete software. This was your piece, Stephen, about possibly the device containing missing features.
Yeah, there were some forum posts from users who had got early hands on a Galaxy Note 2, and they say that this multi-window split screen feature that Samsung had hyped in some videos just isn't there. There's no mention of it in the manual, nothing.
Which is interesting, and it's not the first time we've seen this. I saw this on the HTC One launch, actually, when the One X came to AT&T. It didn't incorporate 60 frames per second video shooting, which had been demoed to me at the event. So I was like, where is this? I hate it when this happens, and then manufacturers kind of just sweep it under the rug. They're like, it'll be out with did they say it'll be out with an update, or have they not?
I haven't heard any statement yet. That's the assumption, that it'll come out, the next OTA update to go out, but no statement yet.
Which is a shame, because you want to be able to use that giant display with like an innovative multitasking feature, which I think I called out in our first episode of Worst Ever with the Kyocera Echo, and it's like
that's guess what I was thinking of when I heard about this. Like, who cares about this? It didn't work so well in the Echo, but I'm assuming that Samsung has its act together a little better.
Yeah, it works actually really well. A couple of examples. They have this note app where you can take a note and it can follow you around the operating system, like the pop-up video. And then they have pop-up web, which I think is probably the most useful, so that if there's a part of a web page you want to keep an eye on, or if there's some information on a web page and you want to go into email, you can keep it hovered on the above the app. So
really.
Yeah, I think they did some cool stuff. Unfortunately, it's only limited to like 5 or 3 or 4, I forget what the number is, applications. It'd be cool if they let developers tap into it. But as we've learned from history, when an OEM comes out with some sort of new API to tap into a new feature, developers are like, I'm just going to keep developing my Android app.
Yeah. It's that trend toward, it's that trend toward like favoring what is most popular and kind of looking at new, and it's like, oh yeah, that's cool, but it's going to take a lot of work, and I'm not sure the return on my investment of time is going to be worth it, so devs don't really go for it.
And unless this is a feature that's going to be on every Samsung phone, what's the point?
Right.
Exactly. And they don't do it like that. They do it like, it'll be specific to this device. And by the time the sales numbers are in, it's too late for the developer to start the 2, 3, 4 month process it takes to create a piece of software to plug into the API.
Right. So we dog manufacturers for not doing new and innovative stuff, or I do, because I always like to see bold moves. But it's a shame when all the blame can't be laid on their shoulders. This is just some of this market dynamics, and it's really nobody's fault. It's just what happens. But that floating web thing, I still can't get past that. I didn't see that on the Galaxy Note 2 we played with at IFA. And I would love to play with that, because that sounds great. Does the page with the floating web page, does that auto refresh?
I don't remember.
Is it like live, or is it like a screenshot of the web page? I wonder.
I wonder too.
Yeah.
We'll have to figure that out. It sounds like Samsung doesn't even know.
Yeah.
They're like, what should we do? we'll ship it later.
Maybe they'll just forget about it.
Yeah, could well be. And then leaving everyone to just talk about the S Pen for weeks and more weeks. I'm looking forward to getting to playing a little bit with that. That should be happening very soon. Speaking of software updates, just to touch on this real quick. Hey guys, breaking news: a manufacturer has backtracked on its ICS update promises.
No.
Yeah, can you believe it?
Say it ain't so.
Yeah, and furthermore, it's Motorola of all people. Can you imagine?
I can't even.
This is hot news. Yeah, Motorola previously had announced plans to upgrade. Specifically, I think we're talking the Atrix 4G, the second iteration of their Atrix line, their kind of fallen Atrix line.
Yeah, along with the Photon, I believe.
Yes, and the Photon 4G. Yeah, and is not happening now. Weird, only in the sense, I think, from my perspective, weird in that it's Motorola, who we previously would have expected this from, but who, under the Google umbrella, it's weird to see them making the same kind of, not necessarily boneheaded moves, because I don't feel like Atrix owners are the ones who are going to be all up in arms about this necessarily, but it's not friendly. It's just the same old Android OEM complaints that I didn't expect Motorola to continue doing once Google had their, hands all on them. I don't know.
Yeah, Motorola seemed like it really turned a page now that it's under the new ownership. I forget exactly who it was, but there was some exec being remarkably candid on Google Plus a little while back about these missed updates. Apologizing, saying this isn't what you users deserve. We want to do better. And then
Really?
to hear this news, it just seems like it's two different companies.
Isn't that weird? Yeah, like sometimes an exec will be very candid like that, and you get this glimmer of hope, like, wow, maybe this corporation will actually gets it, like somebody inside gets it, and then something happens, like the bureaucracy of the corporation takes over, or there's a money concern, or there's something that just prevents this enlightened viewpoint from taking hold, right? That's depressing.
Let's move on to something happier.
Okay. All right, good. Yeah, I've got one. Will multiple Nexus phones ruin the Nexus brand? That's happier, right?
Well, depending on if you're Apple or not.
Yes. This is a piece from our live tweeter extraordinaire and also the Android guy, Joe Levi, from yesterday, the day before yesterday, talking about the possibilities of what might happen if multiple Nexus devices were released. Which is kind of this possibility that's been floating around from multiple carriers. We're hearing rumors over and over that Google is going to announce several Nexus devices at once. And we're talking smartphones here, I think, primarily. Personally, this has concerned me. This is something I think would very seriously dilute the Nexus brand, as just like Samsung is doing with the Galaxy brand name, which is, I think, just completely watering it down by releasing all sorts of products with the Galaxy prefix, which I wrote about in another piece. What do you guys think? I don't ever want to see. I want to see one Nexus phone at a time, just like we're doing now. I want to see. We've gone Nexus 1, Nexus S, Galaxy Nexus. I want to keep seeing that. I don't want a Nexus device family as far as the smartphones go. Like all
If
in
they're
league with each
if
other.
they're all good and as solid as every Nexus has been, I'm all for it. I like more choice, but if we have a Nexus family and like two of them are like the ugly kids that no one wants, then it dilutes the brand, and it's Google loses the prestige behind Nexus.
And this would be a big step, I think, but it's not entirely unheralded. If you look at how things have been going with Nexus devices, especially when we start getting these separate firmware releases for the CDMA version of the Galaxy Nexus, it's already started sort of breaking up into multiple paths where different users are getting different experiences. This is just the next logical step, maybe.
It might be the next step. I don't know if it's the next logical step.
Well,
yeah, I agree. I mean, when we see manufacturers doing this, like I picked on Samsung in my piece, but we've got HTC doing it with the One, where the One X is comparatively awesome, and I think the One, what was it, the One V that really isn't very good.
Yeah, that's not even getting an ice cream sandwich, is it?
I don't even
Or is it
know.
Jelly Bean they're not upgrading it to?
Probably
Not Jelly Bean.
Yeah.
Not Jelly Bean.
Yeah, and I mean, if you want to talk about LG with their Optimus stuff, Motorola with the Atrix. I mean, the Atrix family has just been this kind of downward slope of non-impressiveness.
Hey, Michael.
Yeah.
Let's play a little game.
Oh boy.
It's not
I don't
really
like
gonna
that
be a game.
tone. I don't like that tone of voice when you bring it up. I just get worried.
It's all right. It's only going to be a one-sided game, meaning you're the only one participating.
Awesome.
But
That sounds
what I
great.
like to do is I like to get out my timer, and what I'd like for you to do is name all of the Galaxy devices you can in 30 seconds, and if you get more than 15 of them, you get a pat on the back, and that's it.
If I get more than
Penalty
15,
for repeats?
no penalty for repeat. Well,
All right.
not that
So
I'm making the
so
rules.
stretch your legs. Do what you got to do, and
All right. I'm not
you
going
ready?
to cheat. I was going to cheat, and now I'm not going to cheat.
no cheating.
I'm not
Are you
gonna
kidding me? All right. So
cheat.
this
I
is
got my
30
eyes
seconds. Michael Fisher knowing the Galaxy brand and how far-reaching it has become. In 3, 2, 1, go.
All right. Galaxy Tab 7.7, Galaxy Tab 10.1, Galaxy Note 2, Galaxy Note 10.1, Galaxy S, Galaxy S2, Galaxy S3, Galaxy Nexus LTE, Galaxy Ace, Galaxy Galaxy Camera, which is cool. Galaxy there's that stupid one for like US Cellular, Galaxy Eccentric or Galaxy Exhilarate. I'm sure one of those is right. Galaxy,
Okay.
yeah. Did I hit 15?
You hit 14.
That wasn't 30 seconds. All right, well...
That was past 30 seconds.
That's 30.3 seconds. And I didn't say what happens if you don't get them. You get 10,000 lashings.
I've always wanted to enhance my lashing collection. Wow, that's...
You didn't even get to, like, the dual SIM versions and everything.
Right, yeah. No, I knew there were other weird low-end ones that... I'm sorry that I didn't get to, like, Galaxy Render or whatever that stupid one was.
Well, wow. That was pretty good though. So
it was impressive.
Thank you. Isn't it crazy though? I mean, you know, it's nuts to see companies doing this. I thought the Galaxy brand was so cool when it first came out. It's like, you guys are calling this the Galaxy Tab, and when I got my hands on the Galaxy Tab at first, the first one, you know, the first legit iPad competitor from a big manufacturer, I was like, you know, you guys are calling this something cool. You're calling it the Samsung Galaxy Tab. And well, Tab was always lame, but Galaxy. Whatever. Maybe I'm just a nerd about Galaxy.
What is that Galaxy thing? Because I remember when I first heard about the Samsung Galaxy, the first one was the Galaxy S? Or
Galaxy
was
S,
it?
Right? Yeah. Yeah, because Galaxy S predated all the rest, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, like, okay, I'm thinking of Galaxy, which is a collection of stars and planets.
Yeah.
And I never ever use the word in my day-to-day. It means nothing to me. I don't understand. I don't understand it.
I think that, like, I mean, first of all, any word with an X in it is kind of automatically sort of cool in that sort of geeky way. You have an X next to a Y as well. Those are very rare, and it's a very fun word to kind of say, like, feel around in your mouth, and galaxy, you know? And also, if you watched a lot of Star Trek The Next Generation, you know that the Enterprise is a Galaxy-class starship, and I think that definitely was this number one consideration Samsung entered into when naming their new product.
Well, we won't role play the genesis of the Galaxy brand, but maybe next time.
Thanks for letting us off the hook there. Speaking of product names with X's to close out the Android category, rumor has it the next Nexus phone may launch in 30 days. I don't really buy it. It's just an interesting thing to touch on. We're very due to see the next Nexus device, whether it'll be a family of 3 or 5 or just another single device. It's going to be coming because the time is coming up for it. I don't know if I am terribly excited about it, considering all the other exciting stuff that has been announced in the past few weeks. I think Google is going to have to really, really bring the heat to make it an impressive announcement. What do you guys think?
Part of me thinks that they're not going to bring the heat, and they're just going to fix the Galaxy Nexus. And what I mean by that is the camera's going to go to 8 megapixels. It's going to be quad-core, and maybe a couple of other things. And I think that would be enough to sustain it for another year, because the Galaxy Nexus, if you buy it today, it's a great phone. It's a fast phone. It looks nice. It looks different than anything else out there. And Google would, I think, serve the world well by just doing an iterative update. However, that will not get that much attention.
No.
It won't cause a huge burst in sales, and they'll have to do something more dramatic. But I'm just saying I wouldn't be too disappointed if they just did it.
I think it would get plenty of attention. I think it would get plenty of negative attention. I can see the headlines now, like, did Google just release their own iPhone 4S? For weeks and weeks. Like, it was like, what's wrong with Google?
Yeah.
I'm curious if they're going to actually come through with a whole new version of Android, like has been rumored. I mean, I know this is the thing to do, but it just seems like Jelly Bean barely got here.
Right.
And that also, I'm wondering, what would they possibly do to make it a significant improvement over Jelly Bean? Are we finally going to see that multi-user experience that's been, the framework is there? Is that finally going to be front and center?
I have seen, actually, in the comments to after the buzz for the Nexus 7, I think more than one person mentioned, like, I love this tablet. The only thing that I wish I could do is have multiple user accounts. Because people they're starting to use their Android tablets as like family devices, and I think that's going to be an oddly big news bit when that launches. I think for a lot of people, I don't think there's going to be frenzy about it, but I think a lot of people are going to be happy when they can set up multiple user accounts on their tablets.
I don't know if you saw the video, but I think like a month ago I did a video on a 1X ROM called Domination or something that tapped into this Jelly Bean feature that users cannot access, multi-user support. So I think that I haven't checked Nexus 7 forums lately, but I'm pretty sure that there are going to be ROMs that use this guest functionality. So I think it is possible today, and it actually worked quite well. It's really neat. Did you guys see the video?
I should have seen the video and I didn't. I'm sorry.
Missed
That's
that
okay.
one.
I can describe it. It's awesome because you create a new user account and you specify which apps that person sees. And when you log out of your account and go into that person's account, if they go into any application, calendar, photos, mail, it's all like stuck, like you just hard reset your device. So they can set up all of their own stuff almost as if it's creating a new partition on the device.
That's cool.
And then interestingly, when you go into settings under this new account, there are like 5 settings. Like you can only turn on Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, and that's it. The only way to obviously get all of the settings and do all the tweaking is to go back to the primary user account, which you can then password protect or put on face unlock or what have you. But it works really well. It's pretty smart.
That's really awesome. I mean, it's a logical evolution of we're using mobile technology more and more for stuff that desktops used to handle, and it just makes sense that mobile OSs should start incorporating this feature.
The big downside, of course, and I forget who wrote an editorial about this. I think it was Joe. With multiple user support, you tremendously I'm not going to use that word. I have a problem with the word sometimes.
Disincentivize?
Yes, disincentivize people from buying multiple devices. Because if you look at a typical family right now, little Betsy has a tablet, Timmy has an iPod Touch, Mommy has an iPad 3, and if they had multiple user support, they'd, father would say, wait a sec, we're going to get the iPad 3, you're all going to have your own account, we're going to use it one at a time, and you're going to go to your room.
Yeah.
And eat your broccoli. They wouldn't buy all these extra devices if they could do multiple user accounts. So it's really that's probably why we haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, that is an interesting thing that I hadn't considered. You might be right. I mean, notwithstanding the power of kids to always be like, no, I don't want to share, because I get that impulse completely. But
This is one of those thoughts. It's very cynical, but now that I'm thinking about it, it makes a whole lot of sense.
yeah, wow. Well, we'll see. I guess, and hopefully we'll see very soon, because, like you say, it's built into Jelly Bean. It's just not the switch isn't flipped, right? In a stock configuration. Is that right?
That's right.
Yeah.
I think it's that there's no, the framework for the aliasing, directories, storing individual app data is all there, but there's no UI to actually change users to switch between them.
Yep.
Well, we'll keep an eye on that situation. I want to kind of hop on over to Windows Phone here, which I was looking. I didn't know about this. Nokia has dropped some new Lumia 920 ads, or at least one. Have you guys seen this?
Yes. the one where it's kind of 1984-ish, where you've got these people walking to the sound of a drum, and in the background it's like there's a picture of a 4S, and then it's an arrow to a 5 that looks exactly the same. And then they get to the end of the line, and then they put down hundreds and hundreds of dollars, and then the guy behind the counter gives them a black or white phone, and then the guy that receives the phone says, hey, he sort of implies, can I have one in color? And then the guy behind the counter freaks out, gets extremely mad, and then 2 seconds later, some cool people with Lumia 920s or 820s are walking by with their green, blue, and rainbow color phones.
They brighten up this dystopian dark landscape with their bright colors, and then the commercial ends, and it's like Lumia 920. But the guy who's buying the phone, the customer who hands over the pile of money and gets his 5, which is just a phone that says 5 on it. Which is very subtle, Nokia. He doesn't imply that maybe he'd like color. What actually happens in the commercial, in this 1-minute bizarro piece, is that he goes, color? In this creepiest voice you've ever heard. And then the whole commercial just kind of explodes into this audio frenzy of terrifying proportions. This is the most frightening mobile phone commercial I have ever seen.
Very Halloween-y.
It freaked me out. I just watched it an hour before the podcast, and I was like, what is that? What is... And then I was like, what is that? What market is this for? And I think this is for the German market, which I understand now, because I was freaked out by several advertisements in Berlin, and I was like, oh, wait a second, hold on now, I'm in Germany. There's this big cultural shift, right? But I do not understand what... Jaime Rivera is the one who wrote this piece about this ad, and he made the point, these have never worked. Like when Apple did it and did their 1984 ad directed by Ridley Scott, like they remained, in last place as far as what they were trying to sell at the time. Like it may have been a groundbreaking ad, but I don't think it had much of an effect. And it of course didn't work for the Zoom because the Motorola Zoom kind of isn't a very good product, I don't think. I think the Lumia 920 is one, but I don't think this commercial is going to do anything but freak out people who watch it.
And it doesn't really appeal to people because I don't think anyone's having this conversation. I don't think people that are thinking about the iPhone 5 or have gotten the iPhone 5 sit there depressingly thinking, I wish my phone was yellow and fit my personality. No one says that. It would be nice to have color choices, absolutely, but that's not a headline thing.
Agreed.
You hear non-Apple fans talk about, oh, they're just going with the flow, they're sheep, they're just doing what everyone else wants to. The Apple people buying the iPhones, they're not feeling that they have to get the iPhone because everyone else is. They want this. They like this. They're not the ones asking color.
Yeah, really. I wish I had the timestamp queued up because I really want to play that on the podcast. Color. I agree. I think this is a problem. A solution in search of a problem here. I love color as well. I think it's a really good eye-catching thing. It makes for awesome videos when you're a company that makes multicolored phones like HTC, and you can dump a whole bunch of phones in the same shot and
flip around gleefully.
Right, yeah. And actually, I think that's when these phones are most impressive, to be honest. When there are many Lumias in a single shot, or there are many HTC Windows phones in a single shot. And it's like, wow, that really does look like a mixed, like a bag of brightly colored candy that appeals
Skittle
to the
phone.
Exactly, yeah. It appeals to that 3-year-old inside me that's like, oh, I like this. It's eye candy, exactly. And then you pick one of them to take home, and you're like, oh man, this blue is awesome, but I'm a little tired of it. And that's why you buy changeable covers, and that's a whole other conversation. I don't know. The ad freaked me out. I wanted to mention it.
But hey, look, it's got us talking, and it's been sent around the internet probably a million times by now. And even if it never makes it to TV, which I don't think it will, maybe in Germany, it's a minute long, which is double the length of a normal commercial.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think it's made it as far as Nokia has intended.
Maybe.
So you guys have intrigued me. I am watching this thing. First thing we are done now.
Just don't, raise the shades, man. Don't watch it in the dark. And,
Make sure you have your blankie.
Absolutely. It is freaky. Nokia is actually doing something somewhat cooler, maybe. This is not confirmed for markets outside of Italy, I guess. Stephen, you wrote this story about how Nokia may be denying carrier badging on the Lumia phones.
Right.
If this is true, this would be cool. I think the rumor is that that Nokia is in talks with carriers who are going to carry the Lumia line to disallow carrier, silk screening of the carrier logo anywhere on the device. That would be amazing. Because am I right in saying that no company has managed to do this besides Apple? In the U.S. at least?
I can't think of any.
I can't either.
Yeah, you're right.
There's always a carrier logo.
It's not going to be as far as Apple, because supposedly there still will be a little carrier customization on the software side of things.
Sure.
They can have some apps on there, but I mean, it's a huge step forward having this standard manufacturer logo only external design.
Yeah. You know what's terrible. So it's frustrating and annoying when you see the carrier logo on your phone because it just takes away from the aesthetic a little bit. But there have been some cases in the past where carriers go above and beyond to make sure your phone becomes an advertisement. I'm holding the AT&T Tilt 2 in my hand, and when you extend the keyboard, you get a second nice, big, shiny, metallic AT&T logo that faces people when you're typing on the keyboard. It's gross.
Yeah. I remember when in the flip phone days when carriers like Verizon started customizing the external LCD, which used to just be blank when the phone was open because it was useless, but carriers would start putting in their own stupid logo strings in there. So you had this like 4-line LCD, monochrome LCD, and when you opened the phone, it would invert and it would show Verizon Wireless, and it's like,
I remember that.
Oh my God!
Oh.
And you'd hold it up to your ear and you'd be like, "Oh, that's definitely a Verizon phone.
Yeah,
I'm gonna go to the store and buy one now. Thanks for the advertisement."
Yeah, right, exactly. I can't stand that. They're actually, and this is a kind of a thread type that has maintained itself through at least 10 years. I remember seeing these back in 2003, 2002, when people would come on forums and they're like a new user and they're like, hey guys, I'm just kind of a regular guy. I'm not a phone nerd, but I really want to get this carrier logo off my phone. And, it's sprung this little... There's always somebody who's helpfully able to say, like, oh, yeah, just use some nail polish remover, some acetone, and that'll come right off because it's just silk screened on there. But there are just normal people who are not necessarily phone geeks who are like, yeah, I don't like the logo on there. I don't... It's not in the contract that I ever said I would advertise for AT&T. And I get that. I think that's... So I agree. I think it would be really cool if Nokia were able to pull this off. I think the U.S. carriers will fight this tooth and nail, particularly Verizon. I see big carriers like Verizon, AT&T being able to throw their weight around a little bit and be like, no, you guys are on the least popular platform, of the big three. We're going to do what we want to your phone, and you're going to like it.
You're going to like it.
Yeah.
But, I mean, maybe Sprint's usually interested in doing something different, and maybe T-Mobile, Metro, PCS will play ball, but I don't know. We'll see what happens. This very briefly. Speaking of Windows phones, the HTC Windows Phone 8X front-facing camera got a sample photo posted on the internet, which is awesome.
Well, wait a sec.
What?
Wait a sec. It was a great picture, but if I wanted to, I could take the camera of my Trio 700W, and I could spend all day getting the lighting just right. And it looked like a picture that was taken spur of the moment. But I can get lucky with my Trio 700W. I don't think we should consider this to be an indication of how incredibly amazing the camera is, the front-facing camera there. I think it's a step in the right direction, but I'm taking that picture with a grain of salt.
But what if all the pics end up looking as good as that one?
Then that's awesome.
Would you change your tune? Okay.
Of course, yeah.
Well, here's the thing, though. I mean, okay, so this is a shot of three, I think, HTC execs in front of the David Letterman Theater in New York, the CBS Late Show Theater. It looks like... I'm not ready to say this has been a manipulated photo. I'm not interested in throwing accusations around, but it is almost perfect from a photo standpoint. Like, you've got one guy in the foreground, one guy in the midground, one guy in the background. Like, it presents this amazing depth of field that lets you see, what the camera's capable of from a focus perspective. The color's amazing. The midtones are great. This looks like a shot that was like Instagrammed in the right way.
Is that such a thing?
What?
Instagramming something to make it better?
Oh, jeez. Don't do this.
I don't want. I have had quite enough of you guys beating up on my favorite little app.
I gotta say this. I took a really good picture with the iPhone 5, and I sent it around to Michael and Jaime. And Michael wrote back, "You should totally Instagram this picture."
Right.
And I'm like, why don't I just rub grease on the lens and retake the picture and make it worse? And
you missed the point. It's
I know.
To
I did.
share with people.
I know. I put it on. I should have put it on Facebook. That would be the extent of my sharing.
Well, you should put it on Facebook. It is a beautiful picture. Anyway, so is this. This is a beautiful picture. From a front-facing camera, I think it's newsworthy. I think it does. Jaime's headline is HTC Windows Phone 8X front-facing camera sample amazes, which normally I see headlines like that, and I'm like, oh, that's a little hyperbolic. And then I open it up, though, and I'm like, no, that's entirely right. That's exactly the headline I would have written, because it does. It's for a front-facing camera, that's awesome. And if that's real, if that's untweaked, then that's impressive.
I think I clicked on that expecting that to be the leader image and then to have the front-facing pic buried a little farther down. Like, that's the front facer?
Yes. Agreed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fun fact, that fellow in the middle, Jason Dunn, is the guy that started Pocket PC Thoughts, which back in the early days when it was dark and there wasn't electricity and only Pocket PC devices, it was Pocketnow's competitor in the very early days. It was just really Pocket PC Thoughts and Pocketnow, covering Pocket PC devices, and now things have changed quite a bit. So,
wow,
fun fact.
yeah. And now he works for HTC, is that correct?
Yeah, now he works for HTC.
That's cool. Wow. Finally, in the Windows Phone space, the last bit of news from there is that this ZTE Orbit, which we'd heard about, which I think Tony and/or Jaime got their hands on at MWC in Barcelona, is landing on U.S. Cellular, another smaller carrier here in the U.S., as the ZTE Render. Yet again, a really awful verb name for a phone, but let's not talk about that. We'll just talk about the device.
Hey, Michael.
What?
No. We're ripping on cell phone names a lot. What do you think is a good example of a really good phone name? And Stephen, you too.
I think, it's skirting the edge of like rule of cool and like a little too cool, but I think Galaxy Nexus is one of my favorite phone names ever. Because it evokes you have the Nexus branding, the backing, it's like this is a pure Google device, and Nexus is a cool word with an X in it, and a Galaxy, of course, as we discussed earlier, is cool for its own reasons, and I think that's a very, very cool phone name. I don't think things like Samsung Fascinate or Captivate or Render, for the love of, no, I don't think that these are very good phone names. So Galaxy Nexus would be my vote.
What about you, Stephen?
I think about phone names a lot like I think about car names, in that I think my favorite manufacturer as far as naming its cars go is BMW, because you have these numbers that make a lot of sense. 3 Series cars are going to be similar to each other. The 328i is going to be like the 318. So I think Nokia is doing a great job sort of adapting that for phones. They're not sticking to the series as well as I would have hoped. Like, it's not clear based on the numbering how similar the phones are to each other. But just if they thought it out and started releasing them in these groups where we know, okay, we had the 800 last year, 820 is going to be a little bit better. I think that's the way to do it. I hate these fascinating renders as much as you, Michael.
What about you, Brandon? Are you all about like phones like the Galaxy Aspire or stuff like that?
Yeah, they're very motivational. I really enjoyed the 2000s when HTC would have really cool code names that they never released, like the HTC Rhodium. That's awesome.
Whoa, that's a cool name.
Or the HTC Titan, TYTN, or the
Ew.
HTC. All right, All right, let me go back to Rhodium.
Okay.
So I'd say Rhodium. Let's what else did they had? They had the HTC Universal, the Wallaby, the
Wallaby.
That's a pretty good phone name.
Oh God, yeah.
the Polaris.
I like when code names get weird. Like I think it was the successor to the Palm Pre 3 was codenamed the Windsor Knot. Which is like, wow, all right, you guys are really going crazy. I tend to favor phone names that are more abstract. Like, I think Lumia is a very good brand name because it may have an actual definition, but nobody really uses the actual definition.
Yeah, I like Lumia. That's a good name.
Lumia also, I used when I was doing voiceovers more often, I used a voiceover script for an audition for a shampoo product called Garnier Lumia. Garnier Lumia. Make sure and wash your hair regularly, or whatever the hell the copy was. And there's like 6 months later that Nokia announced the Lumia line. I was like, oh, hey, shampoo.
Phones, sure. Same ballpark.
Same thing, right? Anyway, I'm very excited about this device. I'm not at all excited about this device, but I think it's cool. It's noteworthy because is this the first ZTE Windows phone? Can you guys let me know? I don't know if I'm right on that.
Doubt it.
I think it had one before.
Is it 7 months unveiling the phone? U.S. Cellular's Windows Phone lineup. I don't know if it is the first one. It might be the first one to land in the States.
I think it might be.
Yeah. It's just exciting to see Windows Phone, to see another manufacturer enter the space with Windows. I'm sure it's not. I'm not sure.
ZTE Tanya. Sorry.
No, it's okay. It's the ZTE Tanya, of course. Are we really? This is what we're doing now? Tanya?
February? Ew.
What does Tanya mean?
It's the name of a
Lady.
person.
Yeah.
Lady.
That's what we need, more phones with people's names. HTC Lucille.
Yeah.
Samsung Bob.
Paul. Yeah.
That would actually be a great way to sort of bring but the problem is names are very sensitive. So if you recently broke up with a Kate and the HTC Kate came out, you would not buy that phone no matter how cool it was.
That is entirely true.
If she broke your heart, the phone's going to break your heart. It's just
exactly.
But then you get
works.
the
That's
HTC
logic.
Catherine as the classier upgrade from the Kate.
It's got a better camera.
Right. Wow. This is a solid idea. We got to start buying these domain names right now. Just to hop on our one remaining miscellaneous topic before we go. We have HTC. No, that's not true. HP, Hewlett-Packard, has delivered on a promise to the webOS community, which is awesome. HP, once it torpedoed the webOS ecosystem and everything, it finally collected itself enough, and Meg Whitman kind of organized a bunch of teams internally to be like, what are we going to do with this? What are we going to do with webOS? Because we're not going to do what we used to do with it. And they announced that they were going to open source it, and that was kind of a big surprise to everybody. And everyone was like, "Well, okay, we'll believe it when we see it." HP, or not everybody said that. I think most of us who'd been following webOS news were like, "All right, whatever. When you deliver, we'll believe you." And then they did. They said before September ended, and just last Friday,
September
HP,
29th
at what, like in the middle of the afternoon?
11:59 p.m.
Oh yeah, I mean it was definitely the last day of the work week, the last Friday of the month, and HP announces webOS, Open webOS 1.0, which they demoed. webOS chief architect, what is his name? Steve Winston demoed it running on an HP TouchSmart PC. It was in a desktop environment. I think it was running emulated in an emulator of some kind. And it's cool. I mean, the news is confusing because it's not ready for mobile devices. It's not going to run on the existing webOS hardware if you still have a Pre 3 kicking around or a touchpad. That's what the webOS Community Edition is for. But it was. Go ahead.
So someone got it on the Galaxy Nexus, right?
Yeah, and it was almost immediately, and people have been working on this for a couple of weeks, so it's a little deceptive. It didn't just happen overnight, but the people who've had kind of early access to some of the build elements, I guess, managed to port a very, very, like a pre-alpha version of OpenWebOS to the Galaxy Nexus and to the Asus Transformer Prime, I believe. Which is very exciting. And there's no hardware acceleration of anything, so if you watch the video of Open WebOS on the Galaxy Nexus, like, you try and swipe from one home screen to another, and that swipe action takes something like 15 seconds to complete. You can watch each frame go by.
Frame.
Yeah, so it's not even exaggeration. I mean, it really takes that long. So it is not even close to an alpha build. And there are some driver complications and stuff and whatever, but it's news because HP did deliver it. It's out there. The community can now work on the massive pile of work it's going to take to get the software, the platform running on new hardware, and that's exciting as anything. There's a lot missing though. There's a lot of stuff that relied on the Palm backend and the HP backend, like the Synergy services that came out with webOS first, and that that webOS pioneered, that everyone else kind of stole over the course of the several years. All that stuff is not supported. Like, there's no official Facebook app. I think there's a new browser. There's a whole bunch of stuff that's missing.
Let me ask the obvious question here.
Yeah.
Let's say they get the Open WebOS project flourishes, and developers and professionals make it work very well on, let's say, a Nexus, Galaxy Nexus, and we get it on a Nexus 7, and it works on a lot of cool devices. Mm-hmm. Then what? So you're going to go into the App Store, and there aren't going to be many apps, and none of them have been updated recently, and you're like, well, there really are no new apps, and the interface is cool, but it's got none of the cool features that iOS and Android has now. Oh, I'm just going to go back to Android. Like, why would you want? Well, where's this going? I guess is what I'm
What's
asking.
the end game?
Yeah.
What's the end game? Yeah.
And I think from HTC's perspective, the end game is really.
HP.
Oh God, I keep doing that. I'm sorry. From HP's perspective, the end game is kind of evident if you watch the video of the product demo of Open WebOS, where Winston is like, think about. He says like, think about a hotel. What do you want? You want your guests to be able to make reservations and print directions. They want to do it via a simple and intuitive user interface. Like, this is what HP is going to do.
Oh, I see. They want to make it like a kiosk operating system.
Exactly. And this is what they were planning on doing it alongside their smartphone and tablet stuff when they were all in on WebOS, and they were like, we're going to do smartphones, tablets, printers, toasters, whatever. We're going to do all this stuff. And instead now, they're, instead of the glamorous, fun, exciting consumer space, I think this is how they're going to try and squeeze a little bit of value out of webOS.
What? But even then, webOS never was extremely smooth and refined, sort of like Project Butter did to Android, and how iOS has been all along. If you're building a kiosk for a hotel, why wouldn't you use like Android or just use a touchscreen Windows 8 terminal thing?
That is a really good question. That's been my question as well. I'm like, if I'm a hotel manager and I'm like, well, I've got a choice between Windows, which has a lot of solutions already ready for it, and blah blah blah. Why am I going to just hop on this OS that really nobody's talking about and that is backed by some company called Graham that I know nothing about? And
it'll be a little bit cheaper because it's open source and you don't have to pay licensing fees. But okay. I don't know if it's worth the headache to save $100 or $200, whatever it takes to buy a copy of Windows 8
per install. Yeah, I don't know either, and I'm not sure that HP knows really. I think that they have their eye firmly on Windows 8 for tablets and on whatever they're going to do on phones, which better be Windows Phone 8, in my opinion. So I don't know. I think HP has kind of delivered on their final promise, and they go out of their way, by the way, to say that I am incorrect, that this opinion is wrong. They're like, we're not just going to abandon it now, whatever. But like everyone's gone, The Enyo team all went to Google. The Enyo framework, the architecture team. There's almost nobody left in the department, I think. I think a couple of the few people I was following on Twitter that still worked in the webOS subsector of the personal systems group have all gone. So I don't know.
The whole thing is great to see, but what's the impact of it? Yes, it's great they're putting in these hours they might not have to and delivering on these promises, but what of it?
Yeah, it's going to be
the only thing I could see that would be extremely exciting, but I think there are so many barriers to this happening, is if the development community got together, sort of like the Cyanogen mod team, and they said, we're going to make this a really good product, we're going to release it on multiple devices, and then suddenly it becomes maybe an even more distant third or a fourth operating system that people run on their phones, and it gets developer interest and people make apps for it again, and it becomes like owned by this team of developers that care deeply about it.
Sure, and I think that's definitely a possibility. I don't know exactly what Graham actually is. Every time I look up Graham, I just get more and more confused. But there's a lot of chefs, cooks in the kitchen. There's a lot of hands in the pie. I'm not good at metaphors right now.
Nice.
There seem to be a lot of groups kind of not vying for control or anything like that, but with working on this. And I don't know. I don't think we're going to see anything come of webOS more than outside the hobbyist community, because even the app catalog, which is just full of abandonware now, is required. I mean, HP it needs HP to survive because HP hosts it. Yeah. I believe.
Moderates it.
Yeah, and so it's like, I don't know. I'm excited. I'm definitely going to load OpenWebOS when it becomes available. I'm going to load it on whatever hardware it can run on in a smartphone perspective, and I'm looking forward to doing videos and writing some pieces on it. But I don't think it even has a chance of getting back to any kind of commercial viability at all. It's no longer a commercial interest. It's, in smartphones at least and tablets. So
absolutely.
Yeah. But you know what? That's whatever. This is we're going into the future, and that's all right.
There's plenty of more players that'll be showing up over the next year. There's that new Migo spin-off, Sailfish.
Java,
there's the Firefox OS on the horizon.
Right.
And a lot of new choices.
There are, and then there's that other one that Sprint just backed a little while ago. I forgot the name of it, but yeah, there's a couple. I'm actually a little bit buoyed by that Migo effort, because they seem to be really. We talked about that on one of the earliest podcasts, where these guys were like, "Yeah, thanks Nokia, but we really were working on this awesome OS and we still love it, so we're going to make it work." And they've managed to raise a lot of support. I think they just announced from Hong Kong that they had established an alliance for coding apps. Is that right? This isn't on the rundown. It just leaped into my head. Yeah, maybe we'll talk about it on the next podcast because we're running low on time. I want to hit reader mail real quick before we jet out of here. We have thank you everyone for writing in as usual. We've got 3 pieces of mail today. The first, of course, of course, because it's me, I cannot adequately pronounce the name of the writer, but I'm going to give it a shot. This is from Etisham Shahzad. I did the absolute best I could. He says, "My name is Etisham. I'm from Pakistan. Just a little quick question I wanted to ask. Which is the best smartphone browser? IE9 for Windows Phone, 7.5, Safari for the iPhone, or Android's default browser?" Which he's saying is probably Chrome.
We're only talking stock browsers here.
I think it
Sounds like
it sounds
any
like
browser.
it sounds like these are kind of the choices we have to work with. We've got it's iPhone, Safari, IE9. So there's I think we're talking stock browsers. For my part, I want to say, since Chrome is kind of shipping on more and more Android phones as the default browser, or at least it seems to be, for me, that is the best browser. I will love to hear you guys' response. Chrome is the best for me because I sync it across my desktop, all my mobile instances, and so I kind of have this very non-secure environment, but this very convenient environment where I don't have to re-enter passwords or do anything like that. I just log into Chrome and everything is auto-completed for me. I know that other browsers do that. I live a heavily Google experience. So if you are fully embedded in Google's ecosystem, then I think Chrome is probably one of the best choices you can make. What about you guys? Brandon.
Yeah. Safari on the iPhone 5 works exceedingly well. I like the location of the bookmarks on the bottom of the screen. I think tab management leaves a lot to be desired, but you could get Chrome for the iPhone 5, and then you could do that awesome side swipe. But then it's using the same Safari engine, so it's the same exact speed. I have always liked if you root here I go through. If you root an Android phone and you're running a stock browser. For example, on the Galaxy S3, I think that's awesome. And then if you're using Paranoid Android, you can set the DPI so that you see the tabs at the top. So I've found in most cases the stock browser to be a little bit faster than Chrome on Android, and I don't know why that is. I still think Chrome for Android is not fully baked yet. So I like stock Android browser the best probably on a fast device.
I think I'm going to have to mirror those sentiments. I'm not much for syncing bookmarks across devices. Stock Android browser does what I need it to do. It's fast enough for my purposes, and it's going to be on every device, so you're familiar with it. You pick it up. It does what it needs to do.
Cool. And there you are. I guess, and I guess ultimately, in a very broad sense, the best browser is the one that you can get. And if you happen to be on Windows Phone, and IE9 is kind of your only option stock wise, then that's. I hope that answers your question.
I have an inkling that if you get a device like the Windows Phone 8X or the Lumia 920 with the dual-core CPU running with Windows Phone 8, I have a little feeling that might outperform even the fastest browsers. I think just Microsoft has done such a good job with the Windows Phone browser. Even in Windows Phone 7 and 7.5 was just remarkably fluid.
It was excellent, wasn't it? Yeah. That falls under like that kind of broad user experience, user interface umbrella that Windows Phone has sort of always done really, really well. And I agree. I'm looking forward to trying it again when I snap up a Windows Phone again, which is an overdue event. This next one is from Ryan Field from California, who has two questions about Google's acquisition of Motorola Mobility. And we talked a little bit about this earlier, but so they bought the division of the company, now what? A Razer Nexus? I would really love to see a Motorola Nexus device because of the outstanding build quality, but Ryan makes the point that, Samsung seems to be kind of the preferred partner here. They really haven't done anything with Motorola yet to make their purchase seem worthwhile. Do you guys think we'll see a Razer Nexus?
I think it's a matter of time. I mean, I think we talked about this in one of the previous podcasts where
right?
the acquisition finalized this year. I mean, it takes sometimes 12, 18 months to create an entirely new product. And Motorola already had an existing roadmap, and we're seeing it roll out now with the Razer HD and Razer HD Max and Razer M and Razer I. Those were developed probably in 2011 at some point, maybe even talked about in the late 2010. So I think we'll see obviously something come out that's Nexus flavored from Motorola, but it might be at the end of next year.
And I'm not so sure about that. I think there might be something to having Motorola have this separate identity, have this look from its phones. It has these, everything looks like a sheet of paper from Battlestar Galactica with the angled edges, and with the Kevlar. It's got its own thing, and they don't look like the devices that Google's been involved with. And I think that could be a good thing. It gives people more options. I mean, like Brendan said, we don't know how. Since everything we've seen so far, since the acquisition has been based on stuff they've been working on for months and years prior to this, I don't know how the new leadership is going to affect things. I'm hoping that they keep things separate, but we'll have to wait and see.
It's funny, though. I think people expected a lot more right around now. Like, I don't think anyone expected for us to not even feel the acquisition. And besides having Chrome as the default browser, I don't think we really feel it. And it's kind of funny.
Yeah, I mean, you can see it if you're looking for the subtleties. You can find it in devices like the Razer M, where it's like, oh yeah, this is a much lighter skin than it was even a couple devices ago. And then, of course, there's Chrome, and things run a little bit more fluid. You can kind of sense it, but I agree. There's nothing overt. There's nothing huge that we're seeing from it. I just want to share in that hope that Motorola retains its own device identity, particularly in the hardware side. Software, I don't care what Google does to Motorola's software customizations, as long as that Circles widget can stay there. Because the Motorola hardware is great. I agree. I love the Kevlar. I love the cut corners. And I hope that remains. So yeah, I think personally we'll see a Motorola Razer Nexus at some point. Yes, but I don't know, no idea when. Second question from Ryan is just a quick one. My second question has to do with Motorola's promised update of Android 4.1 Jelly Bean to the original Razer, my current daily driver. Do you think we will see the update
to the original Droid Razer?
Yes. No, my answer is no. Considering the news we got today, I don't think if it lands, I will be surprised.
Everyone's pulling up Motorola's list right now.
Yeah, I know. I'm
What's the official word?
Because the Razer is more a flagship phone, right? Than the Atrix 4G, and it's a newer phone than the Atrix 4G. So it has a greater chance of getting Jelly Bean update, but I don't see it happening. This is just me being a little pessimistic on account of this never-ending story of OEMs being like, oh yeah, we'll get around to that.
Yeah, but the hardware specs on the Razer aren't that different from the Atrix 4G. I mean, gig of RAM, 1.2 gigahertz dual core. If there was a good reason not to do it for the Atrix, then maybe the same applies to the Droid Razer.
That's a good point. I didn't think about that.
But we don't know if the reason was technical or just they figured that there weren't enough users left to make it worth their while.
Right. But there's a disparity there, no doubt, too, because I'm sure the Atrix 4G didn't sell as well as the Droid Razer.
This is true.
Yeah, so I don't know. Motorola, according to Ryan, Motorola's promised $100 if the update doesn't come. I didn't know about that.
That's interesting.
It is interesting. But I would much rather have the update because the money only goes towards a new Motorola-built device, and the Razer M is not my cup of tea. I feel you, Ryan. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. We'll have to see. I'm not confident in it. The final question we've got, it comes from Brendan Clark, who's asked us a question before. This one is very, very specific. I just don't know. I have another question this time in regards to the Acer A500. Just curious if you know if there's a possibility of a Jelly Bean update. Everyone's definitely amped on a Jelly Bean update for their individual devices, and I totally get it. I have seen, and I looked at this very cursorily right before I came on the air, and it looks like there's a ton of custom Jelly Bean ROMs. There's like some CM whatever builds out there for it, but I have seen no inkling of an official update. Have you guys?
I don't think so. Yeah, I've actually seen a lot of news about the Acer A series of devices getting Jelly Bean through custom ROMs on XDA. Certainly not everyone wants to root their device, but if you want Jelly Bean, sometimes you got to do some some things to get it. You got to break some legs to
I think it's less objectionable to talk about rooting tablets than any sort of customization with phones, especially when you're not dealing with carriers and all. People I feel are a lot more comfortable taking that sort of step with a tablet. So maybe that is more of a viable option than if we're talking about an actual Android handset.
That's a good point, because I think most people get their tablets through Amazon or Newegg and not necessarily the carrier unless they're getting, one with data.
Yeah.
Yeah. The notion of buying a tablet in a carrier store has always been kind of weird to me. I've never wanted to commit to that kind of I'll buy this tablet for a subsidized price with a contract on my tablet. I don't know. Then maybe I'm weird.
And that's, I think a lot of people have that fear because it's so ominous to sign that 2-year contract, and tablet, you're like, well, am I going to use the data? Am I not going to use the data? Which is why I love what the iPad does, where you can turn on data when you want it, when you need it. I wish every tablet did that. It's brilliant.
Me too. Yeah, no, agreed. It was one of the first pieces I wanted to write when I came on board in February. I was like, I want to talk about this thing, how I go into a carrier store and the tablet section is always there's always this tumbleweed blowing through it. No one's ever playing with the tablets in the carrier stores I go to. Whereas if you go to Best Buy or you go to an electronics retailer that is kind of broader, yeah, there are people playing around with the tablets. They want to see what's going on because you don't necessarily have to get them with a data plan. And that's, that's a strong disincentive, I think. Anyway, Brendan, good luck. I think you should, if you want Jelly Bean, certainly you're going to get it faster on the A500 if you are able to get your hands a little dirty. And you should, that's fun. You should do that. And I tend to run stock, and I will say that it's fun to trifle with a tablet's innards every now and then. So, before we wrap it up here, I think we're about at time, guys. Everyone who wrote in, thank you very much for your listener mail, and stick around to the end of the podcast to listen to the email address that you can send your questions and comments to. But before we do that, Brandon, do you have anything you want to wrap us up with?
No.
How lovely. I think we've covered a lot. I want to thank you, Stephen, for joining us on the air at somewhat short notice, and for letting me actually talk to you in person, or as close to in person as we're going to get.
No problem at all. It was great being on board today.
Thanks for being so versatile and accommodating, Stephen. It was great that we could have you on. We should do it again.
We definitely should. Yeah, it is overdue, and I apologize because we've been meaning to get you on for a little bit. Can you tell, Stephen, you're not too social in your media, are you? You're not on the Twitter sphere, are you?
A little bit old school in that regard, yeah.
That's cool. That's all right.
How can people has communication with Stephen Schenck?
Exactly. That's the question. Can people email you?
Hit me up with one of the contact buttons on the site. Be able to shoot me an email through one of my posts if you have a question about that, or just want to talk to me in general. That's probably the best way to get me.
Sweet. Oh,
nice.
That's excellent. For Brandon and me, longtime followers will know, but if you want to talk to any of us in a public forum, hit us up on that Twitter. Brandon Miniman is at Brandon Miniman, BrandonMiniman. And I am Michael Fisher. I am at Captain 2 Phones, Captain the number 2 Phones. You can follow Pocketnow's official Twitter account at Pocketnow Tweets. You can also follow us on Facebook, facebook.com/PocketNow, Google Plus at gplus.to/PocketNow, the ugliest URL anyone has ever heard of. Just search for us on Google Plus. Don't do the URL.
Just search.
Yeah, and for everyone who has left us a review on iTunes, you are awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Those do help us out quite a bit, and it helps keep the podcast coming to your ears. So if you have a moment and you have not yet left us an iTunes review, please do so. If you have a topic, question, or suggestion for the podcast, like our awesome people who wrote in this week, or you just want to say hi, please shoot us an email at podcast@pocketnow.com. Once again, thank you everyone for listening. We'll talk to you next week.